Hi, I'm Gary, and welcome to the galley. In the galley today, I want to show you how to make beef stock. Now, I don't think any galley or kitchen should be without beef stock. It is an absolute staple. It is the basis for soups, stews, sauces, and when you make it homemade, it is packed full of vitamins, nutrients, and collagen. And that collagen is good for your eyes, your skin, your hair, your nails, and your bones. So I think it's going to rain on me today. So before it starts raining on us, let's jump down in the galley so we can get this beef stock making. It does take some time on the stove, but your actual participation time, it's not that much. Super easy to do, and you're going to be glad that you made it from scratch. So let's get going. When you're making your beef stock, your bone choice is super important. Now, the local grocery store here in the freezer department sells these bags, and they're not very expensive. Of what does it say? Beef soup bones. And these are perfect. These are what you're looking for because these are pieces of shank, and so they have marrow in them, and marrow is something you really want in your beef stock. They're also going to have pieces of connective tissue, and you can see that connective tissue there, and that is super important too because all of this marrow and connective tissue is going to cook down, and it's going to make a protein called gelatin, and that gelatin has amino acids that is super healthy and good for our bones and joints. So I always have a bag of soup bones in the freezer for when I need to make beef stock, and it's so easy and convenient just to pull them out and be able to make beef stock. But I also went ahead and picked up some backbones. Now, talk to your butcher and just ask your butcher. Sometimes they have neck bones that they'll sell you for cheap, and let them know what you're looking for and what to do. But I went ahead and picked up some backbones because this has some meat on it. And that meat is going to add another layer of flavor to this beef broth. Now I want to roast this. So basically, I want to make a brown stock. There are white stocks and there are brown stocks. You can make a white stock with chicken, veal, or beef, and you can make a brown stock with chicken, veal, or beef. And the difference is roasting your bones. I always choose to go with the brown stock and roast my bones because it just adds a whole nother depth of flavor. And obviously, it's going to make your stock brown and darker. I've got my oven on 450 degrees. Now you can do this on a big sheet pan, but you want to do this. I'm going to have to do this in my cast iron here because it has these sides. You're going to develop a lot of fat in here that you're going to want not to run out into your oven. So not a cookie sheet, not something that doesn't have sides. And this has, for me, the deepest side. So I'm going to put my bones in my little casserole dish here. I want to add just a little bit of oil just to kind of get it going, just a little bit. I'm going to do avocado oil because that avocado oil has that high smoke point that I like. For 30 minutes, I'm going to roast these. And then I'm going to add some tomato paste. Let me wash. The next important thing in your stock is your mirepoix. And normally you want to do for your mirepoix 50% onion, 25% celery, 25% carrot. And I am going to cut this fairly large. This stock is going to cook for upwards of 8 hours. And if I chop this really fine, it's just going to cook away and dissipate into the stock, and that can help cloud your stock and can also make your stock take on a bitter flavor. So for stocks that you're going to cook for a really long time, you want to make sure that your vegetables are cut big. If I was doing a fumet or a court bouillon, something that doesn't cook for very long, then I could do my mirepoix in a very much smaller size. And I know you're thinking that is not 50% onion, and it's not because I'm supplementing with some leeks. I really like leeks in my stock. And I want to show you how important it is when you're doing your leeks to cut them and submerge them in water and just go through and try to wash them, because dirt just loves to live in these layers of your leeks, and you don't want to just pour this and dump this, because all of that dirt is going to settle to the bottom, and you don't want to pour that right back over your leeks. So soak your leeks and then pull them out from the top so that they're clean. You don't want this gritty dirt in your stock, obviously. So I know this is a funny angle, but I just wanted to show you how much dirt and sand and grit comes out of those leeks and settles into the bottom of your bowl. Now I want to roast my vegetables too. I'm going to toss them in some tomato paste, and I'm going to roast those too. But I don't have a big enough oven to be able to roast these and my bones. So I have to wait for my bones to come out. Once my bones come out, I'll use that same pan, and then we'll roast our mirepoix before we add it to the stock. So I just like to get in with my hands and spread this tomato paste around. I just find it's the easiest way to get it all worked in throughout all of these vegetables. So here we are. We have 30 minutes of cooking on these, and boy, do they smell good. So I'm just going to add some tomato paste. And luckily, I have a new tube. And I just like to spread it around. Just kind of paint it on my bones, and then we're going back in the oven for about 15 minutes. Let this tomato paste pincé. And when you pincé your tomato paste, it helps make it sweeter and not bitter. So we've got these beautiful bones out of the oven. They really smell delicious. And in about 45 minutes, just keep an eye on them, make sure that they don't burn. And I'm going to add these to my stock pot. Now, make sure when you have a stock pot that it has a nice heavy bottom. You don't want one of those really thin aluminum pans. When you do, it's going to just heat right here in the center, and 8 hours of that, it's more than likely just going to burn right there in that center. So you want a nice heavy bottom stock pot. I just love this stock pot. I really love that it has this insert tube, because it just really makes life easy when it comes time to strain this stock. So I'm going to put my bones in the pot, and then all of that mirepoix that we tossed in the tomato paste, I'm going to put in this pan with all of this bone fat that we have, and into the oven, and I'm just going to roast them 10 to 15 minutes. You just want to keep an eye on them, make sure they don't burn. Anything that burns and goes into your stock is going to impart that burnt, bitter taste. So I'm going to pop these in the oven. When you're doing water on your stock, always, any stock that you make, always start your stocks with cold water. When you start your stocks with cold water, that blood and impurities start to coagulate, and they rise to the surface where you can then skim them off. I don't think that was 5 minutes. And when you start your stock in hot water, well, those impurities, they coagulate fast, and they just stay dispersed into that stock, and they never rise. So then what you have is all of those impurities a part of your stock, and your stock's going to be cloudy. Now I'm just going to add enough water to cover these, but I have to leave some space for my mirepoix. So as soon as my mirepoix is in here, we'll come back, we'll have a look at it. So I've got my veg in, and now I can go ahead and top this off with my water, and then we just want to let this come up to a very gentle boil. Don't ever hard boil your stalks, or you're going to again make them cloudy, because those impurities are just going to scatter throughout in there. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is obviously going to reduce as it cooks, so I'm going to add as much as I can. So this gives me 2 gallons of water that I have in here. So we're going to keep an eye on this, and when it comes up to that gentle boil, I'm going to turn the heat down. I'm going to put it on my simmer burner, and I'm going to simmer this for 6 to 8 hours. You could even go 12 hours. And I'm going to go 6 hours, and I'll tell you why at the end of 6 hours. So you want to stay tuned for why I'm doing it for 6 hours. And we're just going to keep an eye on it. We're going to skim when needed, and really the perfect temperature for simmering your stock is 185 degrees. So if you have a thermometer, then you can do that to make sure you're at the right temperature. You're not too hot, you're not too low. So that's a good way to know that 185 is the perfect simmer temperature for your stock. And I almost forgot, we want to put some bay leaves in here, some thyme, and some peppercorn. Don't ever put salt, any salt. This is going to cook and reduce, and you're just going to make salty stock if you let it reduce like that. I prefer not to salt my stocks, but to salt my stews or soups or sauces that I'm making with this stock. So I'm going to put some fresh thyme in there, some bay leaves, and some peppercorns. So as you can see, we have movement starting in here. You can see that water starting to move. You can see the impurities are starting to come up. So before this hits that hard boil, I'm going to move it to simmer. Let's see what the temperature is, just out of curiosity. And it's there it is, 185. So it's at the perfect temperature to simmer. So we're going to let it stay at that perfect temperature. So we're back here on the back burner. We're simmering away, and we're going to simmer away 6 to 8 hours. Some people go 10 to 12 hours. Some people do it overnight. I don't feel comfortable going downstairs to bed knowing there's a pot on the stove. So I prefer to do mine during the day where I can keep an eye on it. And that's it. That's all you have to do, is keep an eye on this. You just want to make sure it doesn't get too hot and start boiling, and have yourself a spoon and a bowl close by, and just every once in a while take a peek in there, skim off anything that needs to be skimmed off, and get on with your day. You don't. So we're about 4 hours in, and you can see we've reduced down, I would say maybe 2 inches, and we're still just at a nice steady little simmer there. So our 6 hours are up, and I'm going to pull this up so it can start to strain. So this can start to drain. Now I believe there's at least 2 more hours in these bones and vegetables to extract flavor from. And the reason why I'm pulling them out early is I'm going to, after I strain this, I'm going to put these back in the pot. I'm going to add some fresh water to them, and then I'm going to let them go another 2 hours. And then I'm going to have not as intense of a beef broth, but I'm still going to have a beef broth, and I will use that to make like a pot of beans. So that's why I'm doing it early. This beef stock that I have made is going to be perfect for what I have coming up, what I want to use it for. And then I'll have another pot of stock that I can use for something else. So I'm not throwing these away yet, but I am gonna let them sit over here, and then we'll strain off our stock. Now I have a bowl, a strainer, and you can use cheesecloth for this. I don't have any cheesecloth, so I'm going to use one of my flour sack towels, which I actually don't mind using, and it's nice, you can reuse them. I'm going to start with it not in the middle, but towards the end up here, because I'll end up wanting to roll this as it starts getting clogged. And then we're just going to look at that beautiful color. Can you see it? And start to strain this. Now, another very important thing about your stock, well, really about anything, is letting this cool down completely before you put it in the refrigerator. You never want to put anything hot or warm in the refrigerator. So once we get this nice and strained, then we'll put it in the refrigerator, and then we'll see you in the morning. In the morning, we'll pull it out of the refrigerator. It'll have a line on the top that's that beef tallow or that beef fat that rises to the top. It gets hard, and then it's so easy to just remove it. So I'll keep straining this, and then in the morning we'll have a look at it. So it's actually been maybe 3 days since I put this in the refrigerator. Things got busy and I just couldn't get to it. And you can see it's nice and set up, and on the top you can see it's solid. So that is all of that fat came to the top and got solid, and then all you have to do is pick it up. Now this is beef tallow, and you can absolutely cook in this. You could cook your hamburger in it, or maybe cook your steak in it. It's really delicious beef tallow. So throw it away, keep it, your choice. But this makes it so easy just to get all the fat on it when you just let it chill overnight. And now at this point, I have two options. But just I want you first to see just how beautiful and rich this is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put mine in a pan, and I'm going to reduce this down by at least half. And that way, and that's a little bit of sediment in the bottom, and I'm going to leave that in there. So I'm going to put this on a low simmer, and I'm going to let that simmer till it reduces down to half, if not a little bit more. And this time can take anywhere from 2 hours. It depends on how much liquid you have in your pan. And the reason I do that, you have a couple choices at this point. You can freeze your beef stock in like skinny little bags, because this doesn't take a lot of freezer space up, and this is a nice way to do it. And you can also measure it when you do that. You know, like you have 2 cups of beef broth in there. But we have pretty small refrigerators on the boat, so I take mine down till it is a complete gelatin. So I keep my beef broth in the freezer. This is actually one of my chicken broths that I made. And whenever I need chicken broth, I just scoop in here, and I have concentrated, super delicious chicken broth. So this is like scooping into a jar of better than bouillon and making chicken stock. So 1 teaspoon will do about 2 cups of water, will make you 2 cups of broth. So this is just a way that you can store your beef broth without taking up a lot of space. And this is just it just fell on the floor. This is just my preferred method. Or so why am I going to do this instead of better than bouillon? Well, because better than bouillon has artificial flavors, it's chemicals, and has a whole lot of sodium. It's not as much sodium as the granule bouillon that is packed full of sodium, but the better than bouillon is almost like 700 milligrams per teaspoon of salt, and it's a whole lot of salt. And why do they put so much salt? Because salt brings out the flavor of stuff. So they can put more salt and less actual chicken and fool you into thinking that it's delicious chicken. So make your own beef broth, store it in the freezer. If you can, then can it or reduce it down to this beautiful gelatin. And if you see my video for chicken stock, which is this one that I did, you'll see just how beautiful this jelly is once it's reduced. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you go out and make your own stocks and stop spending all that money on basically water, artificial flavors, and sodium, and make your own stock. Super easy. If you look in the freezer section or ask your butcher and get a bag of bones, this bag of bones costs about $4 and will make at least a gallon of stock, if not more. So make your own chicken stock. And if you haven't already, do me a favor and hit subscribe, please. Give me a thumbs up. And if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave a comment and I'll help you in any way I can. Until next time, safe cruising.